a member of the city-run Safe Streets program has been shot and killed.
It is the second member of the violence interruption program to lose their life to gun violence this year.
It also happened in a neighborhood that had not seen a murder in more than a year. Dan Lamparello live in the Breaking News Center with more on this. Dan?
Well, tonight, the mayor's office confirms Safe Streets employee Kenyell Wilson, who's also known as Benny, was shot and killed this afternoon in Cherry Hill. It's not exactly clear where the shooting took place, but police say after he was shot, the 44-year-old drove himself to Harbor Hospital, where he later died from his injuries. A tragic night for sure for the Safe Street program and Cherry Hill. This homicide is significant for many reasons. This is the second Safe Streets worker to be murdered this year. In January, the program's leader, Dante Barksdale, was shot dead at the Douglas Homes in southeast Baltimore. Police made an arrest in that case back in March. This is also the first murder to take place in Cherry Hill in more than a year. In fact, the Cherry Hill community just last week, along with Safe Streets leaders, gathered there to mark the milestone, and they credited Safe Streets for helping to keep the peace in that neighborhood.
The joy of it is when you can get to 365 days and 0 person dies from gun violence inside of your post. That's being on the job. That's like a very good baseball team, defense, and with the workings of the community, helping you, because we got a lot of them out here who helps us.
In a statement tonight, Mayor Brandon Scott also reacting, telling Fox 45 News in a statement, "I am deeply saddened and angered that Benny's life was taken in a weak, cowardly act. I've spoken with Commissioner Harrison and directed him to make apprehending the individual or individuals responsible for taking the life of one of our prime examples of changing your life a top priority." Councilwoman Felicia Porter, who represents Cherry Hill, also put out a statement on Twitter tonight calling the murder of Kenyell Wilson a blow to that community. As of tonight, police have not made any arrests or announced any suspects in the case. We'll continue to monitor this breaking story throughout the night. For now, though, I'm live in the Breaking News Center. Dan Lamparello, Fox 45 News.
Strategy, and explains why experts say it may not have much of an impact.
The president's plan is to better target the trafficking of illegal weapons into cities like Baltimore, with the hope of finding and arresting the most violent trigger pullers. But experts say it's a plan we've heard before, and so far hasn't worked. It's the tale of the tape in the city of Baltimore, outlining perimeters of violence and bloodshed across this city, where bodies are measured in bullets. Victims of an epidemic of gun violence, where those pulling the trigger don't fear legal consequences.
Are people feeling more emboldened to use a gun and go shoot a person now than they were 3, 4, 5 years ago? The answer is yes. And that's the problem.
Jason Johnson is an Operation Crime and Justice contributor who believes the current pace of violence the city of Baltimore is seeing is a direct result of crimes lacking consequences.
There's no way around it. You can't reduce crime without going after those people and holding them accountable.
But last month, the federal government announced a plan that would hopefully do just that.
It's an outrage. It has to end, and we'll end it.
President Joe Biden meeting with Mayor Brandon Scott and the leaders of several other cities, promising a partnership the federal government believes would help stop the illegal flow of weapons into Baltimore, preventing them from getting into the hands of those using them to kill.
Mayor Scott says that 80% of the guns in Baltimore were acquired outside the city. There's little he can do about that. So we have to act.
I think that we have to understand that it's not being soft or tough on crime. We have to be smart on crime. We have to do the things that we know work.
But some are skeptical of how well it could work, especially since Baltimore already has some of the strictest gun laws in the country.
I'm going to say it's going to have virtually zero impact because it misses the point.
Johnson believes the president's plan is missing the human element of actually finding those driving the violence and putting them behind bars.
So the president's plan is very long on gun control type rhetoric and very little, if not really non-existent, any talk of holding individuals accountable who actually are using guns to harm people.
While it wasn't included in the president's plan, there is a federal program that does work to hold gun offenders more accountable.
Gun violence in Baltimore, totally unacceptable.
It's called Project Exile and saw a small expansion here in Baltimore this year.
To prosecute illegal firearms here in Baltimore.
The initiative transfers certain gun cases from state to federal court, where penalties are usually stiffer.
And it takes collaboration.
And while City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby seems to be on board, a recent study from the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund shows since she's been in office, there's been a 42% decrease in mandatory minimum sentences handed down for gun felonies.
They intentionally engaged in ABA pleas to avoid the mandatory minimums, which runs completely contrary to the purpose of Project Exile.
A disconnect that could lead to even fewer consequences as the federal government's plan moves forward, which experts say, despite more funding for community intervention programs, may not lead to the change this city needs.
Do we want people to, in all manner, to find other avenues in life? Absolutely, 100%. But if they don't do that, we want to hold them accountable. So that's the bottom line.
Last year, 73 gun possession cases were charged under Project Exile. That's the most since the program was created here in Baltimore. And while there was an expansion of the initiative this year, experts say it could be expanded even further if there was more of a commitment and investment from the president himself.
7:18 on this Friday, and as we gear up for the 4th of July weekend, we're going to talk about firework displays because they're highly dependent on the weather. So here I have a list of the ideal conditions you'd want to have for fireworks. Ideally, low humidity. You want it to be nice and dry, and we're actually going to have that this weekend. No thunderstorms. Thunderstorms pose a safety risk because of the lightning plus the damaging wind threat. Fortunately, we're not looking at any thunderstorms. You want some light winds because that actually helps break apart and disperse the smoke. And it's okay if you have a little bit of rain. Fortunately, it looks like that shower chance is pretty slim this weekend. Now we see all those bright colors, the whites, the reds, the blues, the greens, the violets, yellows, oranges, and even some silvers in there. And this is a look at why you see the different colors. It actually has to do with chemistry. Chemical compounds make up the different colors. So I've got those listed below. So for example, if you see white in any of those fireworks, that has to do with magnesium. Violet would be a combination of two, so copper and strontium included in that. Orange, for example, includes calcium. So that's why you see all those bright colors in the skies during those displays. And it looks like the weather will cooperate for firework displays both tonight, Saturday, and again on Sunday. That's because we're looking forward to mostly clear skies, a little bit of light wind, and it's going to be nice and dry. So